Welcome to You Need a Coach, Bitch. I'm your host, Chris Hale. I'm a certified life coach and coach instructor. I'm also a master dance educator and self-proclaimed Xennial Pop Diva. Every week, I bring you a conversation to help you harness your inner authority by popping the patriarchy and crafting the life of your dreams. Are you ready to unleash your inner creator? Let's go. Hello, Eden. Welcome to You Need a Coach, Bitch.
Hello, Chris. I feel very welcomed, and this Zoom room is lovely. I really love the way it's like bringing me closer to you right now.
I love it. I love being close to you. So Eden, for the listeners out there, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a queer artist and filmmaker based in New York City, born and raised in New York City.
Ooh.
Yeah, holler. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to work around the world, primarily in commercial and branded content, very much in the documentary space, as well as make a number of narrative films. I've mainly direct and produced, but I've done everything in film. Like I knew this is one of those things I wanted to do at 12, so I was just like, well, I'll just do it all. If I know I'm going to be doing this for my life, let me touch every aspect of this so I really understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Mm. So when you say everything, does that also mean like in front of the camera, behind the camera, like you've been on screen?
Yeah, that actually does mean that. Yeah, if you I was in a I think I was in like an Always commercial or like a short yeah, I know like yeah, you cannot find this unless I send you the link, but depending on how I'm feeling. I've been in front of the camera. I've been a camera assistant. I was a production assistant. I started working as an assistant editor. I knew I wanted to direct, but directing is really kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none job, in my opinion. You have to really understand things and know how to work with people and know how to communicate people to bring the best out of them. So that's what I love about filmmaking to begin with. Like I love that you're in this team of people and you're all sort of bringing out the best in each other. So yeah, I've been in front of the camera, behind the camera, on the side of the camera, in the other room when the camera's rolling, all the things.
Maybe if we're lucky, you'll give us the link to that Always commercial.
Yeah, it was. I will say it's a feminine product. I'm thinking about. I'm like, wait, is it Always? I know it's
Oh,
like definitely one of the the bigger ones.
listen, I think it's amazing. Just eat in the face of some feminine hygiene product.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, yeah, I think like let's see. Let's maybe tell people how we know each other because they're like, why are these two people talking to each other? What's the deal?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, maybe I'll like tee up our origin story and then maybe you can like take over when it feels appropriate. But um, so if people don't know out there, my husband and I used to have a dance company called Pushing Progress. It was a performance-based company that he ran. And then we started doing intensives, workshops, and eventually like a year-long training program. And um, actually, she wasn't even a former student. Carla was never a student of mine, but she was a student at a studio that I worked at, and she knew a lot about kind of our message at Pushing Progress, which was very like self-development focused, and she was very interested in like shooting a documentary about our summer intensive, and that's when Eden comes in.
Yeah, yeah. I we were on both Carla and I were on staff at a company, and Carla wanted to make this film. I was just super supportive, especially I feel like at that time, especially I was sort of struggling to keep my fire going. So I was like, all right, let me
Mm,
support the people around me.
nice.
And Carla was able to make this short film, and didn't I didn't come in knowing anything about Chris and Kaylin, about yourself and Kaylin, which was in hindsight probably the best thing because
Mm.
it was an experience that really put me back in my body as a creative and really set me on this journey of like allowing me to free myself of constraints that I had as an artist. Yeah, just the relationship was super transformative very quickly. So
Mm.
so I'm glad, and we've you and I and Kaylin have like continued to maintain connection and friendship. And Chris was also my coach, is my coach as far as I'm concerned, because I can't have a single conversation with Chris without feeling like, oh, there's now a fire under my ass because Chris is dug through all my bullshit. So it's good.
It's a gift. It's a gift I have.
Yeah, it's very good.
I'm so curious as to like what exactly it was that, as you say, like put you back into your body as a creative
Hmm.
with that
Yeah.
experience at that summer intensive.
Yeah, I mean, dance isn't something that I would connect to my artistic practice, but I do feel that art in general, no matter what the genre, connects artists. So it doesn't matter what it
Mm,
is, because it's an expression. And the thing I loved about dance, and particularly about what Pushing Progress was exploring, was that everything is connected. How you are thinking, how you are processing things, the argument you had before you came in, the the thing you've been working on for 6 months that's affecting you, that you haven't been able to succeed at. All of those thoughts affect you. And as for me as an artist, I hadn't really first, and just like to be really frank, I hadn't even come out at that point. So you're not, and just so
really?
everybody knows, Chris was very aware that I was queer, but I hadn't formally come out.
I don't think I realized that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I certainly wasn't wasn't in any way pretending to be straight, but I hadn't come out, and I think being an artist requires a level of self-acceptance,
Mm,
and being connected to that program and the people in that program at that time in my life. I became so open to exploring myself and embracing who I was. And I think that was a much longer process than just that season. It didn't happen that summer that we made the film. It happened, it really took a year, 2 years for me to like understand and explore. And it's something that honestly I'm still figuring out. And a lot more curious about it now, where at that time there was a lot more fear because I grew up in a really religious family,
mm.
and just grew up with a lot of narratives that weren't even my own, but I believed them to be true. So they controlled a lot of my actions.
Yeah, there's my brain is like questions. Think so much. So you said so much, and my brain is like, I want it all. Tell me more about, you know, your thoughts on being an artist requiring a certain level of self-acceptance. Like, tell me more
Hmm.
about that.
Yeah, I I don't think that process is ever complete. Let me start there. Accepting yourself, I don't think that's ever. I accept myself differently today than I will tomorrow than I did yesterday. Um, but accepting myself means I am accepting my voice. I'm accepting my point of view. I am accepting that those things are valid and and deserve to take up space. And when I was denying this very huge part of myself, in addition to other things, and it wasn't denying this one part of myself. Also, if I'm Puerto Rican, like that was a whole other aspect of myself I hadn't really explored, because I had started to mute who I was. And those are things that, because I was denying them, never entered my art. They never entered my expression because I was denying that of myself, and therefore I'm denying it to the world. Um, so as I began to be able to accept those things, I could really explore, like, what are my struggles here? What is the problem with me saying who I am confidently, even if that changes? So many things have changed in the last few years. For example, my pronouns have changed in the last few years. But again, it's process, it's curiosity. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm.
No, it totally makes sense. And it's really in line with like this message that I kind of started the podcast with, which is owning your creative authority.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's all about that, right? It's about
Yeah.
it's like radical self-acceptance
Mm-hmm.
And and from that place of radical self-acceptance, it means accepting like our voice. It also means accepting the things about ourselves that we don't always love, but we don't have
Mhm.
to love them all the time. Things can change, our identities can change, our pronouns can change, our expressions can change, and we can just be in this state of, like you said, curiosity with ourselves if we're in that place of radical acceptance. So I'm curious how your work, how your art has actually changed
Mhm.
um, over the
Yeah.
last couple of years.
Yeah, I think I don't think I know. I think my one of my strong suits I think has always been my ability to be present and just connect with the people in front of me, which is a lot of the reason why I for my commercial work especially I'm doing documentary branded content but with real people, which is frankly like a very difficult skill to work with an untrained person who isn't a performer and bring out their best and also get what you need. Um, but that exploring that and connecting to people who were closer to my identity, whether it was in sexual orientation or race or beliefs, any of those things, that was a little bit harder. There were a wall. I think it was hard for me to imagine putting up. What are people going to think of me if I am creating work in these genres? How are people, especially when I'm was at a place where I was like, oh, like I don't even know who I am. Who am I to be talking to people about their identity? Um, so, that I think probably the biggest thing was, and this happened kind of over the pandemic. I just kind of set an intention of, okay, I want to work on a film for Pride, and I want it to be something that somebody else pays for and that has a way of like an audience. Someone's going to see it. And I was able to do a short format documentary with this store called Stories. And it was following basically like 5 coming out stories. And that was something I'd never done, like just never done, honestly, never wanted to do. And I was in front of the camera for that. I also like shared my coming out story. And it was the hardships, but also like the celebration. What happens when you accept who you are? What happens not just to you, to the people around you? Like for me, that process was really helpful. And also it's still interesting because I still have people who come up to me that I haven't seen or like, oh, when you put that out, I went to see it. Like that happened over the weekend. Somebody like a friend who I hadn't seen in years, like, oh yeah, I did actually go to see that. That was really incredible. I didn't know these things about your story and it really touched me. So um yeah, I think like thinking about my work as something that can give to other people and connect to other people and have space. That's probably the biggest way it's changed. And the topics I'm exploring are very different now. They're a lot more personal.
Yeah. Um, and I think that does happen for us. The more that we get in touch with ourselves, it becomes the work we do becomes so much more personal. I know for myself, with what I want to help my clients with is really helping them to have the impact on the world they want to have. And I do that by having the impact on the world that I want to have. Right. So that's like by uplifting queer creatives to get their stuff out there in the world and make money and,
Mm-hmm.
basically put us in power, like give us power in this, you know, system that we live in. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I think it'd be really interesting. Like, do you consider yourself like an entrepreneur or like a business person?
I do, and I just want to touch on one thing you just said. I
Yeah.
absolutely do. It is one thing to want to make money. It is another thing to recognize that you deserve money. Um,
Woo!
I think
Preach.
like that was
Yeah.
that was such a in our work in my work with Chris, that was such a big hurdle to get over. And to give brief context, and I really do feel like it's important to understand this in terms of the entrepreneur that I am now. I grew up not very far removed from my family who immigrated here from Puerto Rico, who came here and had this idea about surviving and that they would do anything and to make ends meet. Everything was just about getting by, and therefore all of the power was in somebody else's hands. Um, when I began to work through that and understand, okay, no, not just, I am not just doing this and someone is giving me something. No, I am talented and I deserve to be paid. I deserve to charge this much because my time is worth this much because I am an expert in my field. I have put in the 10,000 hours. And when I think about entrepreneurship and what that means to me, I don't think I'd be able to do anything I am now without making that very fundamental change. And it's still something I struggle with. And I still, some days, I'll hear the narrative in my head and I'll be like, all right, we need to stop. I don't need to be chasing something. I need to be looking at what's coming to me and do I want it or not? Is it for me or not? Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about what that shift looked like for you. Like, how were you able to make that shift from not believing necessarily that you deserve it or believing that it had to, come from somewhere else? Or I think it's really common, especially for artists, to believe that we have to struggle to get it. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you like add all the rest of our identities in,
Yeah.
then we have all these other narratives that are either like handed down or absorbed from, like culturally. So like
Mm-hmm.
what was that shift like for you?
The shift actually required a lot of tactile actions. I had to look back at my family and my parents and first just ask myself, or if I'm looking at my parents, at my grandparents, do I want to live life in the way that they've lived and work in the way that they've worked in? And the answer very quickly was no. And I love and respect them and I love that they're on their journey. But knowing that immediately was like, okay, well, if I don't want that, I can't do the same things. What do I need to change? So the first thing I started doing that like you had encouraged me to do in our sessions was just make a list of everything that I would mark as a success that I had accomplished, little to big, whatever it was. Like even and I was looking back at years and years and years, and I never at that point I didn't understand that I had invested the time to learn this as a craft. Doesn't mean that I've got it all. I still have a lot to go, and every day I'm learning something new. But I hadn't looked back and thought, oh my God, I have spent all of this time invested in this career field in all these aspects. And I had never just celebrated that and allowed myself to accept that I was a professional, that I was talented, that I was already successful. If I never did another thing, I had already accomplished so much. Um,
Yeah,
and
what did
that,
that feel like to
I
do
mean, even
that?
talking about it makes me like a little emotional. I'm like, also just like, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of a badass. I mean, that was like that was the just like like really believing in myself and recognizing I have already done things different than the generations before me, but changing my mind about what that means and what I deserve, that it was so empowering, and it has so significantly affected my way of moving through the world and my relationships with my clients, my ability to ask for what I want, really think about what I want and need, and then be bold enough to ask for it. Because I get offers for stuff all the time, and I'm either have to negotiate or decide if I want to do it, or there are a lot of times where I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry, I actually can't do this. I actually can't do this for what you're asking. You're asking me for X amount of time. You're qualifying it as this amount of money, and in my mind, I can't do that. That's not enough from my time, and it just began to like shift everything else, and then I just started attracting so many different things, and that was a crazy process because they're things that I wasn't controlling or dictating. They're things that were coming to me, that's always the space I was hoping to be in someday. Is like, how can I be in a space where things are coming to me and I'm not um, running as hard as I've been running, if that makes sense.
Can you see at all how you created that though?
A little bit. I'm sure you're going to teach me. So, like I said, every session with Chris is a
So, you mean it's like we can only control ourselves, right? And we can only
Yeah.
control what we put out there in the world and how we show up. And our thoughts create a result. So when your shift of like of your thinking changed in terms of like what's acceptable for you, what's not acceptable for you, um, that's when you start putting out into the world in a really clear way the message of what's acceptable for you and it's what you call in. And you
Mm,
end up creating, and we don't realize we're doing it because it's in the conversation that you had with that one person that one time that you didn't think was anything.
yeah.
And
Facts. Yeah.
this kind of goes back to that like exercise I had you do of like, can you see all of like the accomplishments? Like we need to sort of take more credit for the way we show up in the world
Mhm.
and the ripple effect that that has. So you absolutely created this situation now where things are flowing to you and you can be in the receiving of that. Like you did that.
I received that and I'm grateful.
It's so great. I would actually like what is like if it's like there and tangible, like a belief that you have that allows you to like say to someone, because I think this is something people have a really hard time with, especially artists. There's a lot of scarcity, right? And like if I'm being offered something and someone wants something for me, I should just do it because I don't know when the next thing's coming, or like that kind of BS, right? Like,
Hmm.
what is a belief that you hold that allows you to say to someone like this is the work you want and this is what you think it's worth, and I don't agree. Sorry.
Yeah, the belief I have. Well, I think one thing, um, I think some of it's like practical and tactile. Some of it is how I've decided to measure my time. So someone comes to me, they're requesting a project. I will take the time to break down how many hours that requires, what they want, what they say they want versus what they actually want, communicate how we like measure success, and then be really clear about my standards of working. Like I always tell people like you're not getting my split time. I don't, especially now I'm not, I'm very careful about how I spend a day. If I have a day I'm focused on one project, I'm giving people
Mm.
my focus and my time. And that to me, my time is the most valuable commodity. I don't know. Actually, as you're talking about, I actually think the big change was like I stopped thinking about money and started thinking about my time as the most valuable commodity. Um, because that's the thing that I don't have an infinite amount of, and like will run out. Money can flow, money can go, but like my time is the thing that I can't, just it just life is short. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm a little bit lost in the sauce here. Hold on a second.
No, I no, it makes so much sense, and I think that's a really important thing to hear, right? Is that like it was everyone thinks that we have to focus on the thing,
Hmm.
right? So if it's money, if I want more money, then I have to focus all my energy on money. But a lot of times when we're focused on money, what we're focused on is our lack of money,
Yes. Oh, ooh, preach. Yes.
right? Like we're not actually like focused on the making of the money. And I think that comes from a lot of what you talked and touched on earlier around like our beliefs around deserving money
Hmm.
and like any kind of like, you know, stuff we need to clean up around that. But when you take your focus off the money, right?
Hmm.
When you took it off money and put it on time and you really leaned into the value of your time,
Yeah.
because we're really exchanging money for value. We're not exchanging money for time, but you realize that the most valuable thing was your time. So
Yeah.
then we get into this whole other discussion of what are we actually exchanging? And it makes so much sense that when you made that shift, that now the money is flowing.
Yeah.
When you took
Ooh.
your focus off of it and put it on what was really like important for you and what you
Yeah.
valued most.
Ooh, that just is hitting me so hard. I'm like, I don't know if this is like a podcast or like a, get Eden going session.
It's gonna serve
It's
all the
all the
purposes. It's
all the things. All the things. I like
and
it.
you had mentioned, right, like this idea of um like helping other artists realize that they don't need to spread themselves thin. And
Yeah.
I think that that was definitely something we worked on, was sort of like your kind of belief that you needed to be accessible to
Yeah.
everyone else all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and especially like uh in terms of work, right? We worked a lot on like kind of you like what are the projects you want to do? Like let's focus you back to like what does Eden want to make?
Yes.
And so I wonder if you would just speak a little bit about that shift, right? I mean, that's a part
Yeah.
of it, right? But it's like it's that whole spreading oneself thin
Hmm.
because it can happen in lots of different ways.
Yeah, I mean, right, it's not just like what I'm doing, but like where is my attention? Like I can be doing something and be thinking about four different things, and suddenly the thing I'm doing is taking four times as long because I'm thinking about the appointment I have tomorrow and the deadline I have a week from now. Um, so being spread thin, there's that aspect of it, and then there's the other aspect that I think a lot of artists, particularly freelancers, entrepreneurs, is just doing so much. I'm working across X amount of projects. Like, and this happened when I was in the agency world, which is definitely why I stepped away from it. Is like I'm working across all of these different projects. Nothing's really structured in a practical way. I'm literally spread thin because I don't have the support system around me. Right, I had a very, like most companies in the city, very small group of people wearing a lot of hats. That is very taxing. It's taxing on your mind and on your attention when you have to be the client manager and the editor on a video and producing the video and thinking about, oh, what's going to happen when this video goes out there? How are we going to get people to watch it? It's a lot to think about. So I think definitely streamlining my time and being more intentional. Um, I one of the one of the things you had me do that I sort of inverted after our process and kind of made work for me is you taught me the idea of like focus time. So taking basically saying, okay, I'm going to qualify 2 hours a day as my focus time. And first of all, I don't care what anybody says, the amount of things that you can get done in 2 hours of time if you are focused. It's insane. It's totally insane. I've edited 20 pages of scripts. Because when your attention is focused in, you know your goal and you have decided nothing else matters in this moment, your capacity to execute is higher. And it has only gotten higher as I've like trained my brain and created it as a habit. But doing that calendar activity where basically I put in those 2 hours of time and decide ahead of time what I want to accomplish at the start of the week. I did that for, however long we were working together and then like a couple months after. And then I found that rhythm of it. And as I started to see the results of how powerful my focus could be, it really impacted everything else, because then when I showed up to do something else, right, like I'm not always working on my computer, I'm on set. So when I'm on set and I understand we have a 10-hour day, I know how to make that day because I understand the time, I know exactly what it takes for me to accomplish this scene, how to work through that time. If I'm running behind, what do I need to adjust for? Just by putting all of my attention in that moment and like being much more intentional about my time.
Yeah. How long would you say it took you to get to that place?
Um, I actually only think about a month where I saw the value of it. I saw the value of it pretty quickly because I was like writing more and then like actually just like editing and executing a bit more pretty quickly. I will say too, I'm very like goal oriented. So like if someone gives me a task, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be the best at this task, and like really knock it out. But also, yeah, understanding. So I think it didn't take long. What took a bit more time was for me to understand my style in that of like knowing, all right, if I know these are my 2 hours of focus, this is how I can fill in that time. But for me, doing that back to back doesn't always work. I typically have to split that hour that time in the day. And my focus time has also gotten bigger. Now I'm at like 4 hours because my tasks are different. Editing is
Yeah.
different. Certain things are different. But understanding the rhythms of my day. So that I would say maybe took about 6 months, a year to really like get narrowed down. So the actual like shift of the mind didn't take long, but trying things, failing, iterating, doing something different, like that shifts.
That's
And
so
things are affected
important.
by yeah,
Yeah, that's so
absolutely.
important for people to hear, I think, because like everyone wants it to happen quickly, but the retraining of our brain takes
Yeah.
time. And then like you said, making it our own takes even more time. And
Yeah.
the being like failure focused is
Yeah,
really important. Like
it
being like
is.
just like I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna fail at it and I'm gonna work on a way, like work my way through it to figure out what actually benefits me the most is what takes the most time. And I think a lot of people want that fast, like quick
Yeah.
fix that's going to just revolutionize everything for them. And it's like the concepts will. And we get
Mhm.
that dopamine hit when we get like, oh, the concept makes so much sense to me. Oh, let me implement it for a week. Oh, it worked. But then inevitably your brain comes back in and starts like pulling its bullshit. And you're like, okay, maybe this isn't working. And you start going into self-doubt. And we have to work through that whole process. So to hear that it took you like 6 months to a year to actually like hone it and make it your own
Mhm.
is, I think, like something that everyone needs to like understand. And then it's going to be different for everybody, but like you put the time and the energy and the effort in and you're seeing the benefit of it, and that's awesome.
Yeah, and I also like I I have become more comfortable with long-term goals. I think a thing that I don't know if it's exclusive to New York or exclusive to creatives, but I feel like what you're describing is this like short-term mentality, and it's if I think about how working on that for a year will has affected the rest of my life, it's been transformative. It's been totally transformative. So it's yeah, the time is absolutely worth it, and the hurdles are worth it, and the failures are worth it. And they're if you become comfortable with it, they're also it's kind of fun. It's fun to see what works and what doesn't. And it's fun to see. It's amazing to see yourself accomplish something in that way, like wow, my these like very small actions like really can have this big effect on my life and like on the lives of the people around me. Yeah.
So I want to do like a slight little pivot into just in terms of representation and like how important you think that is in, in especially in creative spaces,
Mhm.
but like, on set or just in the world in general, just generally.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, representation has been such a big quotes, buzzword, but
Yeah.
not the shift, right? When we talk about what has actually shifted, like, we're still not seeing a very diverse subset of people in positions of power. So when we talk about so first I would say like yes, people are talking about representation, but the same way that we are talking about setting this idea of long term, that is a long-term shift because it takes time to to get to being the CEO of the company. But when the importance of representation, um it isn't just this like betterment of the world principle. It's about as a society, how can we push ourselves forward? How do we push our humanity forward? And I really don't believe you can do that unless you have a diverse group of people having a seat at the table, because all of those opinions, and I feel like I'm so lucky to see this in the microcosm of a film, right? A film is so much better when everyone's voice is being fed into it. My voice as the director, yes, it's obviously I have an opinion, but my ability to take the opinion of the director of photography or of an editor or of a set designer will significantly affect the ability of the product to be better, because I have a very small subset of information about that specific task that they've spent their entire life being excellent at. And I think it's the same thing in the world when we get these diverse perspectives and when we're able to understand, embrace, respect, and also consider, like, oh, what if we brought this idea into this project? What if we thought about this differently? How would that impact, and also allow for things to move quicker, more efficiently? I feel like so much of so many of the problems that are faced in with the lack of representation, it's like it's in we still think it's about competition, we still think it's about surviving, when it's like, no, bringing people in will create more space for everybody. Like, there's no absence of opportunities or of success, there isn't an abundance, but when we treat it as if there is, then we're limiting the possibility for new and brilliant creations. And this isn't just about creativity. This is about about art, like the art field. This is about technology. This is about government. It's about everything. And the ability to transform by allowing perspectives and different voices to have a seat.
So would you consider the work that you do like political?
I think everything is political, personally.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think everything,
yeah.
I really think everything is political. I think because in my mind, politics is a representation of the beliefs that I have. The only distinction that I would make, especially for myself as an artist, is when I put my stamp on something. This is what I believe today. Understand that I may believe something different tomorrow, and I am open to that, and I hope that you are too. Because I feel like the difference in saying it's a political, something is like a political piece, I want to cause conversation. I want to sit, I would consider myself moderate to liberal, but my best work is done when I'm sitting down and able to connect with somebody who believes something completely different, because that to me is actually having impact. And my goal isn't to change their mind. My goal is for them to understand me and for me to understand them. Like, that's so my goal as an artist, as a creator, is always connection, where I feel like when we say the word politics, it's inherently about division. I don't think about politics that way. Like, I really think we can connect, but we do have to have the ability to listen.
I love that. And I agree 100% with you. And I think that's why like I wanted to talk about like representation in the first place, is because I think that the more we know about people,
Yeah.
right, the more compassionate we are. And
Yes.
so when everyone's voice is included, we're getting to know more about more people.
Yeah.
And so then, yeah, like if with our work, with our art, we can help like people understand each other,
Mm-hmm.
then it's absolutely political, because that affects like the way that people show up in the world and the decisions they make about how they want to treat people and what they think is right and fair and just and like amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, I could talk to you about so many things.
I know. We could talk for days. Yeah.
I am curious too, like just to kind of think about like your whole journey. Like when you met us, I don't even remember what year that was. Do you remember what year?
No idea. A
No
long, long
idea.
time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Like 2012. Has it been over 10 years? I don't even know. Um, was that kind of your first introduction to like thought work in that sense? Like, I guess, like if you could call it like coaching, thought work, like the way that your thoughts impact the results and the way, what you create in the world.
Yes. I mean, hands down, no question. Like, part of what comes with growing up in like a family of color, particularly like a Hispanic family, is like, uh, we don't believe in that woo woo bullshit. So I didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about how I felt. um, again, this is like an old story, but I think it's important to know because I think a lot of people a lot of people I know is still struggling with this. Um, it's hard to think that doing this work will have an outcome or will what it's hard to manifest or consider the outcome because all I was taught was so different. Oh, if I just show up and work, my life will be good. If it doesn't consider that I am experiencing traumas or having things happen to me or like I am doesn't challenge me to stop and say, "Oh, like wait, could my life be my life be exactly what I want it to be if I take the time to just look inward and consider where I am and what I really want." Um, so yeah, that was definitely I'd just never seen it done. I'd never had a relationship with people who were doing that work. That's maybe the bottom line of that.
Yeah. And so like what do you like over these however many years, what do you think the biggest shift has been for you if you can look back?
Yeah, I think the biggest shift for me has been understanding how my thoughts impact my output and my actions and like my ability to succeed. I think I didn't get that it isn't just doing. I have to believe that I can achieve what I want, and I have to believe that whatever you want to believe, what that the universe is on my side, that people want me to succeed, that the universe wants me to succeed, and that sometimes success doesn't look exactly how I imagined it, but it probably looks even better, even if it has a moment of failure, even if it has a moment of and big quotes around failure because I have learned way more from failure than I have from doing something exactly perfect. Like I have grown so much more from those moments, and those have been the things that have paid off for future and bigger endeavors. So um yeah, just like understanding how much my thoughts can impact.
That's amazing. Okay. So, is there anything else that you want to tell the queer creatives out there?
um Trust your voice and take naps.
Oh, yes. Wait, I feel like we need to make merch that says trust
Yeah.
your voice and take naps. I love a nap.
Yes, they're so and I mean I say take naps because it was the quickest way of for me to say is um rest. Know when it's time to till the ground and know when it's time to take a walk and know when it's time to stop creating and understand that that is you big not creating is you feeding the thing that is you feeding the work because it's you taking care of yourself, it's you clearing your brain space, it's you being inspired by the way that light is hitting the wall outside, the conversation that you have in the coffee shop about somebody's life. um I think there's a lot there's I think there's too much overwork and there's too much thought that overworking will get you somewhere faster. Life will get you there exactly when you're meant to be there. You need to you need to trust that it's a process and enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Okay, that was a motherfucking mic drop. So we are gonna wrap it there because I don't think that like anything more amazing could happen than what just came out of your mouth because it is exactly the message that I am trying to get out there to the world right now, especially is that like chill the fuck out, slow the fuck down, take care of yourself first,
Mm.
and like let the universe and life support you. So,
Yes.
oh my God, Eden, thank you so much for being with me, being thank you
My
being with me
pleasure.
today.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, don't know what am I trying to say. Where can people find you?
Yeah, please follow and connect with me on Instagram. Notice I say connect. Don't just follow me. Reach out, shoot me a message. It's EdenMart11. If you want to look at some of my work, visit my website, edenmartinez.com. Yeah, if you practice Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, I train at Unity. Come and roll. I also have a dog. We can go for a walk. I'm really big on let's meet IRL. Let's like connect in the world. Like I'm happy to help, happy to connect, happy to just like leave you with a bit more joy than you started your day with.
Amazing. Well, thanks again, Eden. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Chris. Bye.
If you are loving the podcast, it's time to put a ring on it. It would mean the world to me if you would do one or all of these things. First off, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, or all the places podcasts are available if you want to be extra. While you're there, giving a 5-star rating and leaving a review would be epic. And lastly, spreading the love by sharing your favorite episode would be beyond. Thanks, love. We'll talk soon.